So what's up today? I'm going to do a quick little unboxing video. Garmin Varia RVR 315 rear view radar RVR. The 315 version does not have the tail light. I didn't think I needed to get that because I have tail lights, but it does everything else. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail of what it does. You can watch DC Rainmaker's post about a year ago where he rapid fire commentary describes the RVR 515, the new version that had just come out at that time. This is the new version of the one that he described, only without the tail light. Now, this is going to be a lead-in to a small critical review. Critical in the sense of analytical, not negative criticism, although there's some stuff that could be construed as negative, or it could be construed as constructive criticism, and hopefully Garmin gets it. Anyway, this is not my first RVR 315, it's my third. Unboxing videos. Yeah, people seem to like it. If I do an unboxing video, it always gets more views than anything else. But that's not why I do it. I don't really care about views. If you watch, you watch, and if you don't, you don't. It's as simple as that. I'm doing it for my own amusement for the most part. This is not even going to be the full package. It's just a replacement that Garmin Thailand has sent me. But I'm going to keep the box because I've had to send it back twice now for the same problem. I'll tell you a little bit about the genesis of my decision to buy the radar. It's not cheap, but it's not horribly expensive, but it's 150 bucks, this one, for something that does essentially what a rear view mirror does. So this is a brand new unit. I'm going to have to repair it to my head unit. The reason I bought this, I had been studying it for a few months, and I thought, well, that's a curious and interesting device. Let me read up about that, and that led me to Rainmaker's video, and this has been a year ago almost. And eventually I pulled the trigger on purchasing it. So I ordered it, I think I ordered it from an online retailer here in Thailand. And in the interim, after ordering it, of course I was still riding my bike. We didn't have these things, so I've been riding a bike without one of these for years and years. So you have to question, well, do I really need that? And I determined, I think it'd be a good idea. Do I really need it? I don't know. We'll find out. The day before this thing arrives, I have a 30-kilometer loop that I do over and over and over again. It's a good thing for me because I can measure progress and how I feel based on doing the same thing day after day. And I mix it up, of course, with other rods, but that 30K loop comprises about 7 out of 10 rods I take. And it starts right out in front of my house here on the beach road and just heads back toward the hills. And more than half of it's on roads that are kind of restricted or seldom traveled. So it's also a safe route, and it's a pretty route. It goes through country and farmland. The day before this thing arrived, I was on that rod, and I often ride toward dusk because it's hot here in Thailand, and it's usually 2 or 3 degrees cooler by the time I head out around 4 or 5 o'clock. In this case, I probably headed out a little bit later than that, and it was virtually dark by the time I was halfway through the ride and it was dark, by the time I realized that this was a really smart purchase. So what was happening, there's a stretch of road on this loop through an industrial estate, and it's a small road. Most of the roads there are big boulevards and easy to ride on and hardly any traffic. This is a small road that gets you out of the estate, and it kind of loops me back around to the entrance. And I was cycling down that road. It's dark. And you come to a junction where if you go straight, you go over some railroad tracks and out to the beach road and a couple more kilometers. If you turn right, you go back to the way I came in. I complete the loop in that industrial estate and then go back out to one of the main roads. So I was approaching that intersection intending to turn right. I don't hear anything, and there's no lights. It's dark. There's no lights coming, and I don't hear anything, so I assume there's no traffic. Well, at the last second, as I was starting to lean into the turn like this, I kind of just glanced back, and right there was a guy on a motorcycle, 125, a typical scooter that people over here ride. And this is one of the hazards of bike riding in Thailand is people are really carefree about using their headlights at night. And even if they have the headlight on, maybe the tail light on their bike is burned out and they haven't replaced the bulb. That's, I would say, at least 3 out of 10 motorcycles have no tail light on. So you're driving or riding, you can't see these people up ahead. Sometimes you can pick out, there's something up there, what the hell is that? Well, that's a guy on a motor scooter without a tail light. But what's doubly troubling is these guys will ride and gals will ride on their motor scooters in your lane going the wrong way to access a turn. That's very common. Or they'll be behind you and they don't have a light, you don't know they're there. And on a bike, that's fatal flaw. Anyway, I was leaning into that turn and I saw that guy. What happened was he had started idling as he approached this intersection. So there was no motor noise and there's no headlight. For all intents and purposes, there was nothing there except when I'm kind of started this, he flashes by me. Now, he wasn't going too fast, but 25 kph or so on a motorcycle, impact with a guy on a bicycle is never a good thing. And he passed me by this much. And at that very moment, I thought, when is that thing getting here, man? Because I almost had a wreck. Now, if I had this, that would have never happened because this thing sees in the dark. It'll see those people behind me without headlights on and doing stupid stuff. And this has proven to be a genuine lifesaver. It is, and I would encourage people to think about getting this because it adds to the safety of riding a bike out on the open roads. It works flawlessly. There's a couple instances where it's not going to be able to detect a rider until they're almost on you. And that's typically, again, here, there's a lot of motorcycles on the road. And these guys will pull into all the little street side shops or markets, and then they'll back out. Oftentimes people will back out right into the lane and never look back. I think kind of the unwritten rule, protocol here in Thailand is don't hit me. I'm not looking, don't hit me. If you hit me, it's your fault. It really is your fault, and especially if you're a foreigner in Thailand, it's almost a foregone conclusion if you're in an accident of any sort, it's going to be your fault. Well, that's not uniformly true, but it does sometimes apply. Anyway, what will happen is you're pedaling along and you've got this on and it's going to give you an audio alert, ding ding, when something shows up within 150 meters to your rear. And then it'll give you a visual display. It'll pair to your cell phone or to your head unit and give you a visual display of all of the cars, up to 8, coming from the rear. And they move along the visual display according to their progress approaching you. And when they get to you and pass you, it'll give you another audio alert, ding. And also it gives you a flashing lights alert. So the LEDs on my head unit and on the screen of my cell phone will turn color to amber if something's approaching, to red if something's approaching at high speed, and when they overtake you, it gives an all clear and it turns to green. So as long as that screen has a green bar across the top, you can pretty much know there's nothing behind you, because this thing gets it. This will even detect me when I'm getting ready for a ride. I'll have this thing on, I turn all the electronic stuff on and get it going, and I'll have to go do something, then I'll walk back to the bike. It'll detect me walking to the bike. I'll hear the sound go off. So it's really sensitive. But what happens is those guys that are on their motorcycles parked on the side of the road or entering the road you're on and at an intersection and you go past, they enter right after you, they pull out from a market right as you pass. This thing will pick it up, of course, as soon as they get behind you. But by that time, they're right behind you. So you don't have a whole lot of reaction time. But you know they're there, nevertheless. But the difference is on the screen, if it's a car or anything approaching from behind at a speed that's higher than your rate of speed, it'll pick it up to about maybe even past 150 meters. It says 140, but I swear when I'm looking, I also have a rear view mirror that when this goes off, I'll check the mirror just to see what it is. Truck, car, who knows, elephant, guy on a motor scooter. But if they pull out right as you pass, it's going to pick them up, and instead of showing the icon for the vehicle way at the bottom of the screen, it'll be right up toward the top of the screen. So you know there's something that just pulled out behind you. It's really good for that. Now Rainmaker said it's worthless in cities, and I would say it's not worthless in cities. Now by cities, I extrapolate that to mean any sort of busy street, because I don't live in the city, but there are some busy roads here, especially at certain times of the day, where cars are always coming and passing. So you might see 4 or 5 vehicle icons on my head unit or my visual display on the cell phone. What happens is when it loads up with a bunch of cars, the first, second, third, you don't get an all clear because there's still traffic coming. It won't give an all clear even though that guy passed. Well, you know he passed, so that's not an issue. But when the last car passes, it'll give you an all clear and the light turns green. Works really slick. And like I say, that day before this thing arrived, I had that incident on my normal ride where, had I not at the last second decided to just give a glance, even though there was nothing there as far as I could tell by hearing or seeing, that guy would have hit me. It would not have been good. So anyway, Garmin RVR 315, it's a tidy little thing. It's got a quarter turn mount, and it comes with a quarter tone seat post mount that has 3 different style adapters so that it'll work on arrow seat post, a D seat post, or a typical round seat post. Now I've read some criticism by people that use it saying, well, you can't trust those rubber bands that quarter turn mount lashes to the post with. And that's true. However, if you look at that, this is the clamp that comes with the radar. There's the rubber band that can be suspect, true enough. I've never had a problem with one breaking yet. But in any event, I added this little Velcro band. It'll fit right through there, behind where the rubber band snaps on. And so that's not going to come off. Garmin has also come out with a separate item that you can order, and it costs like 20 bucks, 21, 22 bucks. And it's just a more, a better designed clamp seat post, but it'll only work on round posts. And 22 bucks for a clamp, a little plastic thing. Now this thing itself probably costs $3 to make. I mean, it's nothing complicated in here. There's Bluetooth in here. But all that stuff is really, you know, China cranks that stuff out. It's cheap. It probably costs $3, maybe maximum $4 or $5. Sells for $150. Well, there you go. So talking to Alex Bronze, Alex is a friend of mine. He's the owner of Challenge Tech Tires. He knows everybody in the business, so he's a good source. When I'm questioned, I said, Alex, it's a $3 bit of fucking plastic. He goes, yeah, but there is, you know, the cost of developing it and design and all that stuff. And so when they're selling it, they're recouping that cost. Well, maybe so, I suppose so. But still, 150 bucks, probably a $5 piece. But isn't that the same case with fancy sunglasses? Now I have a nice pair of fancy sunglasses. My daughter actually gave them to me. She was wearing them and she decided she didn't like it. It's one of these fold them up Ray-Ban classic design. And those things are $150, and you know, it's again $3 less to make those. But that's commerce, and that's capitalism at work, and it's what makes the world go round and what makes people crazy at the same time. Yes, I would heartily recommend people get this. However, with this particular thing, and I don't know if the on-off button design is the same on the one with the tail light. The one with the tail light is just taller and has a round red light with various flashing modes and whatnot. It also reacts when a car approaches, so that red light will, you know, flicker when a car approaches, so the car sees you a little bit better, presumably. I would find that kind of annoying. Here's the caveat. This little button, I'm going to put a photo of what happened to this device, and it's happened twice, and it's happened the exact same way. This little button is nothing but a oval shaped bump on the outside of this case, and it's part of the weather protection seal, so this thing can be rated IPX7, I guess it is. And it is totally weather protected. I mean, it's waterproof for all intents and purposes. But the design of this switch is such that Garmin has you pressing and holding this button for 2 seconds to start it, pressing and holding again for 2 seconds to stop it. Now the problem is this little piece here fits over an oval shaped opening in this case. And underneath that opening is a little probe that sticks up. It looks like the end of a sawed-off toothpick. It's about that big around. And this rubber piece underneath is designed so that it fits over that probe. And there's 2 little pieces of metal that sandwich the probe, and the rubber piece kind of fits over that whole thing. And you have to press it and hold it for 2 seconds. Now, first of all, that's kind of a pain in the ass design. What's wrong with 1 click on, 2 clicks off? I mean, same thing goes with most cell phones. I mean, they're designed so you have to hold the damn switch to get it to start. Apple's gotten really crazy about that, and they put the buttons in the wrong place, so when you press the on button, you're also pressing the volume button. It's a goofy design, but you pay $1,000 for that. This is only $150, but I still think pressing and holding for 2 seconds is nonsense. 1 click on, 2 click off, and here's why. When you're pressing and holding for 2 seconds, you're putting a lot of stress on that little button. And it's not the button itself. The button's about, I don't know, 2 or 3 millimeters thick. It's a chunk of rubber. But it's attached to this casing. And where it attaches, it's not thick at all. It's quite thin, less than a millimeter. So when you're pressing and holding, you're putting stress on that. And you can do it while it's mounted if you mount it low enough so it is below your saddlebag if you have one. You can do it, but taking it off and turning it on and putting it back on is probably what I'm going to do now. What's happened is this button has completely come out in one piece. It's broken completely away, all the way around the perimeter of this oval button. Gone. And it didn't take long. I bought this first in May of 2021, and in October, the damn thing came apart. June, July, August, September. That's 5 months, and the button came off. So I sent a message to product support at Garmin and sent them a photo, and they gave me a link for registering for repair here in Thailand. And it all goes really quick. I have to say their service is first rate. From the time I sent an email to Garmin Support about the defect to the time they had a guy at my front door to pick it up was about 48 hours. And then probably in less than 48 hours, a new one arrived in a box like that at my front door. No questions asked, really. They just asked you the basic stuff. When'd you purchase it? What's the serial number? So Garmin product support is first rate. However, I got the new one, put it on the bike. I've been using it since October, November, December, January, February. It's now March. Once again, and this happened at the end of February, 4.5, 5 months of use, the damn thing came out exactly the same way. Now, I'm not doing something stupid here. I'm just pressing and holding. It's bullshit on-off routine. So I wrote product support and I said, you guys might want to think about a redesign for this, or to reinforce this button itself, or better yet, do that and come up with a different mechanical switch. So it's a 1 on, 2 click off, which is easy, bing on, bing, bing off. Why that can't be done, I don't know. Anyway, that's my only caveat about that. On the other hand, they took care of the problem both times. It's still under warranty. So if this happens again before May, they'll have to send me another one. It's kind of silly. Garmin, snap out of it. Think about that switch and think about the cover for that switch. Now, a funny little sidebar to this story is you actually deal with product support with Garmin the first time, and then they put you in touch with wherever you are. Garmin Hungary, Garmin France, Garmin Thailand in my case. And Garmin Thailand takes over from there. They're the ones that actually look at the unit and assess what's happening and if you deserve a new one or a repair. In my case, there's no repair. I mean, that thing is gone. So they just send me a new one. Now the fact is, when that thing is gone, it still works. Garmin Thailand, I sent them a message first, because I knew that's who I'm going to ultimately deal with. And whoever at Garmin Thailand responded said this to me: well, that button's a dust cover, really, and it works just fine without the button. It'll work just fine, which is all true. So I wrote him back, I said, what you told me is true, indisputably so. However, it's not primarily designed to keep dust out. It's designed to keep moisture and crap out so that you can advertise this IPX7 and sell it for 150 fucking bucks. Now, I didn't say that to him. I was very polite, but that's what I was thinking. It's a dust cover and it works just fine. Well, it does work just fine, but it's not the way it's supposed to work, and it's no longer weather protected. Now I rigged up a Interim Solution so I could still use it on my rod, and what works really well, on most headsets there's a little rubber plug that plugs in over the hex bolt for the top cap. Now I have a bunch of those rubber plugs floating around, so I took one, I just put it in there. Man, it fits perfectly, so it kind of squeezes into that opening, and it's round enough, the diameter is big enough, so it completely covers the opening on all sides, and it works just fine. However, that's not really keeping the water out either, because it can seep in there. So what I did is I just put a piece of electric tape over it, sealed it around the edges so I could use it, and then when I pressed that little rubber plug, it actually worked just fine. Now I'm thinking that's going to be my ultimate solution, because this thing is bound to fail again. I don't know if anybody else has had this problem. I don't think it's me. I think it happens, and it probably happens regularly. They had no second thoughts, no follow-up questions about this. It was just they received it, put a new one in the box, and it was out my front door in 48 hours. So that's not a technical evaluation, not like Mr. DC Rainmaker, who's very good at that, and I'll leave it to him to continue so. I'm just a user, and I'm a smart user. I evaluate stuff, and I can tell, and I design stuff. I've had to design tools I use in my restaurants, and you evaluate industrial design, don't you? If you know anything at all about tools, you evaluate the industrial design and said, what brainchild with a ID degree from some college came up with that? Somebody that's never actually used that tool in a working environment. No one would do that if they had. That happens an awful lot, but what can you do? Nothing's perfect, is it? So anyway, Garmin RVR 315, get one, save your life, and feel free. One of the practical effects of having this on my bike, I realized it on the first ride, is I stopped riding on the very edge of the road where all the crap is, and I'm out more into the lane when I'm riding all the time. And I get a notice when a car is 150 meters behind me and I can pull back over to the berm. But I ride out more on the road, not in the middle of the road. I'm not stupid, but you do find yourself edging a little bit further out into the road. So that's a positive, practical effect of having this. And it's peace of mind. And I have an intersection not a kilometer from my house that I have to negotiate to begin my ride. And it's a right-hand turn, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 access points to that turn. It's not a crossroads, but it's kind of a funny curve with small roads coming into it. And there's traffic coming from all those directions. And I usually kind of check this way, because that's guys that are going fastest, and that way, because they're going fast too. And then this way, this guy has to come to a stop naturally, but that doesn't mean he will. And then I'm going this way. So I kind of check it, and I use hand signals and everything so people know where I'm going. And I've never had a problem, but it is a navigational situation that could result in a problem someday. Anyway, that's my unboxing and little critical review. I hope you enjoyed it.